and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. I'm so happy you're here. My name's Hannah, and on this channel I post a lot of anti-MLM content. So linked right here for you is my big anti-MLM playlist. We are creeping closer and closer to 150 videos on that, but there's also smaller playlists broken down by type of video as well. So if you're really into these horror stories, there's a separate playlist just for that. This is the 53rd video on that playlist. And for these horror story videos, these are the personal experiences that people have had with MLM companies that they write out, they send it to me. I keep it safe in a folder in my email, and then I pick out a few to read for a video. I have 5 stories picked out today, so let's read them. This one says, "Hey Hannah, I hope you're well. My name is Ash, feel free to use my name. I adore your content and I binge watch it and listen when I'm working from home. Watching your videos made me remember an encounter with a close friend's sister that was involved in Mon8. This took place a few months after opening my small business last year. I sell treats for rabbits and guinea pigs, and she was interested in purchasing a few goodies. I packaged them up as if I was shipping them, and she took them home. That same day, she texted me that her sister was impressed and she wanted to give me a call about a business opportunity. My naive self thought that she had experience in the business world and would potentially help me expand my reach. I was wrong. My friend asked if she could give her my number, and I said yes. Her sister sends me a text shortly after asking what time she could give me a call. When she asked this, it sent my anxiety through the roof. I had really bad social anxiety at the time, and any thought of having a conversation with a complete stranger made me uneasy. Thinking this would be a great opportunity for my business, I shrugged it off and I told her that she could call me the next day at 1:30 p.m. Next day comes and she calls. Excited yet anxious, I answer. She begins by telling me how impressed she was with my work, how beautifully I had packaged her sister's order, and how she thinks we could work together. Everything was going great until she mentioned being a part of her team, and how everything would be the same but with different products. I was confused. I asked her what she meant by this. She expressed that she had a community and team of entrepreneurial women selling Mon8. I was cheesed. I knew little to nothing about MLMs, but I was still weary. I listened to her pitch for what felt like forever, and she asked if I was interested in joining her team. I politely declined, expressing that I really wanted to focus on growing my business and that I had little to no time to be able to manage both. She pressured more on how this was such a great opportunity that I didn't want to miss. Once again, I declined but thanked her for her offer, just wanting to get it over with and continue on with my day. She continued going on about how I can sell the products, how I could build relationships, and even my own team. At this point, I was annoyed and I felt trapped. I had said no multiple times and I was trying to figure out a way to get her claws off my back. She wasn't backing down. I did the first thing that came to mind. I put her on speakerphone and pretended to start answering her question, and then I quickly hung up. I felt so bad, but I was so anxious and she wouldn't take no for an answer. I shut my phone off for an hour before turning it back on. To my horror, she had tried to call me, left a voicemail, and even text messages. She asked what had happened due to our call being disconnected. I expressed that my phone had died, a complete lie, and I had just gotten it to turn on again. She asked if she could call back, and I said no. I told her that I appreciate her reaching out, but I simply wasn't interested. She thanked me for my time, and we left it at that. This whole experience left me with such a bad taste in my mouth that each time she sent me a message regarding anything else, I simply remember the time that she was holding me hostage over the phone. I feel bad because she seemed like such a sweet person that was caught in a lie. I hope that she eventually did get out before it was too late. I'm sorry for such a long ramble. Keep up the amazing work." And your story caught my eye because the subject line says MLM horror story, I hung up on a Mon8 hun. And I know that hanging up on somebody's phone call right in the middle of a sentence is definitely something that feels rude and like you shouldn't be doing that, and that's not the best way to act on a phone call. But at the same time, I don't really blame you for that, especially considering that you had stood your ground and said multiple times that you were not interested and that you didn't have time. You have your own legitimate small business that you want to be focusing on, and she's not taking no for an answer. She's digging her claws in deeper, and like you phrased it, she's backing you into a corner more and more. So what are you supposed to do? If you've made your stance clear time and time and time again, when is it gonna end? And I appreciate your story because as someone who would find it really difficult to hang up on somebody, I think that this is a good reminder that there are certain circumstances where you need to stand up for yourself, and that if you have voiced your opinions over and over again in a polite way, sometimes it can feel like you have no other choice to get yourself out of that situation, and maybe the only way to do that is to just hang up the phone, just end the conversation. Or if you're in person, just getting up and walking away, and those can feel like really unnatural, really rude things to do. But I think your story is a good reminder that if you are being made to feel uncomfortable in any situation, really, it doesn't even have to pertain to MLM specifically, but if anyone is putting you into a corner, making you feel uncomfortable and you need to get yourself out, as Karen and Georgia, the hosts of the My Favorite Murder podcast, say, F politeness, get yourself out of that situation. If you feel unsafe, you have the right to do that. And I love your story for reminding us of that. And your story is also a great reminder that no is a complete sentence, and that's where it really should end. You don't have to explain yourself to anybody as to why you don't want to join their business opportunity. And if they're not respecting that and they're prying you even further, do what you got to do to protect your peace and protect your sanity and get yourself out of that situation. This story says, hey Hannah, I've just found your channel a couple of weeks ago and have been binging on your so-called very bingeable playlist. It is very bingeable, so I've been told. I subsequently decided to share my own MLM horror story, so here I am. I apologize in advance for any grammatical errors, as English isn't my first language. Feel free to correct anything you want or even cut my story to be shorter. For the record, let me say this. It's always the people who say, English isn't my first language, sorry for the errors, that have the most beautifully written emails. So never apologize for that. It's never an issue. Hi, Ziki. But in the description box, I do have a note down there with horror story instructions that says, please make sure that I can read the email. That doesn't really apply to people who have English as a second language, but I've received some emails before that are like completely illegible, like no punctuation, every third word is misspelled. That's what I'm talking about. So never apologize for having English as your second language. Oh my gosh, do you see Zeke's little ears in the frame? Look at your cute little ears. I would ask you to keep my message anonymous if you decide to share it. Much love. A very important side note, trigger warning for eating disorders and mentioning of weight. And just for some context, I'm a woman in my early 20s. Let's start with the fact that for a long time, I didn't even know what an MLM was. I found out about the scheme through Illuminati's video only a couple of years back. That's also how I found out that the company I fell prey to was in fact an MLM as well. In Russia, where I was born but don't currently live, our most beloved MLM used to be popular, especially in the early 2000s to 2010. The products of these companies were advertised everywhere as ones of amazing quality, even on billboards and in TV commercials, if I remember correctly. My guess is that when the market was not yet well developed after the end of the Soviet Union, anything foreign was seen as a good product, even though it might have been trash. I knew of Avon, Amway, and Mary Kay specifically. The latter was also the MLM my grandma used to sell a lot for. I now realize that she was in a bunch of pyramid schemes during these years, selling a crazy amount of different products from makeup and skincare to special ozone gas devices that, according to the claims of manufacturers, could cure anything from wounds to viruses, STDs, etc. If you just blow ozone gas on cuts and rashes and/or drink ozone gas enriched water. Very bold claims, I know. I'm not sure what this whole thing was about, but it just doesn't seem legit to me. It doesn't seem legit to me either. I've never heard of that before. As we see with a lot of MLMs, the families of the representatives are usually also the primary customers, and so was my family. My nanny frequently bought products too, especially a lot of Mary Kay. As a child, I thought all these companies were just regular companies with independent marketers that made a commission from sales. My parents were of the same opinion, and because of that, they've never ever informed me of the scammy nature of MLMs. Fast forward many years, when I was newly a teenager, my parents and I moved to a different country. We will call this country Country X. At this time, I was very deep into my restrictive eating disorder. I couldn't speak the language of Country X either, so this experience of moving away at such an important age and being so sick at the same time was very isolating. My parents knew a couple of people there, though. They used to travel a lot for work and make a lot of connections this way. They were not involved with any MLMs. This following story takes place around 2 years after our relocation. I was in remission from my eating disorder, but I gained a lot of weight during recovery. I also had some hormonal acne at this point. There was this one couple my parents hung out with frequently, Jacob and Linda, fake names. Jacob wanted to work with my dad on his business at that time. They quickly became friends even before we moved to Country X. Linda is Jacob's wife, who has always dreamed of becoming, you guessed it, her own boss. Throughout the years, our boss babe Linda has opened many unsuccessful businesses, going in and out of debt multiple times. I'm not sure how she got involved with network marketing, but she did. Well, after gaining around 50 pounds in my eating disorder remission, which made me slightly overweight and struggling with acne, I became very insecure. I was desperate to try anything in the book. That's when it occurred to my parents that my acne might have something to do with my digestive system and my nutrition, which it didn't, as it turned out years later, but guess who had the perfect solution for me? Linda did. Linda said she had this product that would absolutely help me lose the extra recovery weight, cure my acne, and make me shine. Yes, these were pretty much the exact words. The extra recovery weight comment just seems so eerie to me now. To achieve my goals, I quote, just needed to drink oil-infused water, the minimum of 2 liters or 68 ounces a day. Before lunch, I had to drink 34 ounces of water infused with at least 1 drop of lemon oil. After lunch, I had to drink another 34 ounces of water with at least 1 drop of peppermint oil. I was also highly encouraged to put these oils into my other foods and drinks. If I wanted faster results, I could put 2 to 3 drops into my water each time. I bought into Linda's claims of healing my body from within, so my dad purchased 2 small glass bottles of Young Living essential oils from her. I started the program the following day. I have heard from your stories that some people were struggling to mix their waters with the oils. Well, teenage me had an idea. I would either shake my bottles very, very hard or use a kitchen mixer for my water oil emulsions. My water would become kind of cloudy, but at least I wasn't dealing with huge gulps of oil swimming around the top. Obviously, I wasn't just putting 1 drop in, maybe 3 to 4 drops at least. Who wouldn't want faster results, am I right? Well, after a couple months of drinking the oily waters, I started to see some changes, negative changes. My acne didn't improve. Eventually, it just got worse. I wouldn't say it was necessarily due to the oils. Most likely my hormones were acting out more, but the oils definitely didn't help. I lost some weight, but it was because I felt sick pretty much 24/7. My digestive system was completely thrown off. I won't go into much detail, just imagine having a stomach bug for months on end. That's how it felt. I couldn't keep much inside of my body. One way or the other way, nutrition would find its way to escape. I was concerned about my health and I mentioned it to Linda. She said that it was absolutely normal to be this sick and that my body was, quote, getting rid of all these toxins that accumulated throughout the years, and that I was, quote, going to be better once I was all clean on the inside. Reassured, I obviously continued drinking the oily waters for the next year. The fact that you're seeing these kind of adverse effects when you're adding oils into your diet is extremely alarming to me, as I'm sure it was to you. I'll just come right out and say it. It sounds like your symptoms were vomiting and diarrhea, neither of which are pleasant, neither of which indicate that everything's all right in there. Both of those symptoms are something that I think most healthcare professionals would be concerned about and they would want to check you out for. Those aren't just normal things that you should be enduring in your everyday life, and they certainly shouldn't be side effects of whatever she's kind of trying to make seem like a detox. There's quite a few studies out there that support that detoxing or cleansing yourself isn't really a thing. It's more so a myth. There's no one product out there that's gonna like clean you all out. Your liver, it converts toxins into waste products. And my understanding is that as long as you have a well-functioning liver, that's kind of the best detoxing you're gonna get. And all of these diet products or cleansing products are pretty much a scam. That's what research has come to conclude. So the fact that this Young Living rep is trying to make you feel like vomiting and diarrhea are just normal symptoms that you should be living with and dealing with, and that everything's okay and that it's a good sign, very, very concerning. Unfortunately, the only thing that made me stop ingesting the oils was the fact that it didn't seem to work for my acne at all. I just assumed that the oils were ineffective. Well, even after removing Young Living from my daily life, I still felt sick regularly. For the next months, my digestive system calmed down a little bit, but I started having regular stomach cramps. I was diagnosed with gastritis later on, which was unexpected. I can't say my health problems escalated because of these oils, but unfortunately, there's also no way to say that the oils were completely harmless. An update on Linda if you're interested in what happened with her. She is not with Young Living anymore, as one of her businesses actually took off. It is a slightly unreliable business, but at least it doesn't involve preying on vulnerable people and selling them weird and potentially even dangerous oily programs. Please don't ingest essential oils. No matter what healing properties these reps advertise to you, most likely they are made up. If you're lucky, nothing will happen, but there's no guarantee that you will still be as healthy as you are now after drinking citrus and peppermint oiled water for almost 2 years. Essential oils are not safe for consumption. Unfortunately, I've learned about it too late. Thank you, Hannah, for allowing me to share this story, even if you don't include it in your video, and thanks a lot for educating people about MLMs and their sketchy tactics. I'm way more aware now and would definitely describe myself as anti-MLM. Kindest regards, your subscriber. Wow, yeah, I mean, unfortunately, this is not the first time I've heard of an account of someone ingesting oils and having really bad effects. And I mean, you already summed up everything I was going to say in the end. Don't consume essential oils. They are not safe for consumption. That's not the way they're intended to be used. And there is no evidence out there to support that using the essential oils internally is going to live up to these health claims that the reps are promising you. You would probably be better off just squeezing an actual lemon into your water or putting actual peppermint leaves in there. There's just about as much evidence that those things are going to be good for you as there is for oils being good for you. It's a lot cheaper and it's likely not going to wreck your digestive system in the process. And what this all boils down to, as most things do when it comes to discussing an MLM situation, is the money motive. Even though these oils aren't proven to do those things for you, even though it might have a bad effect on your overall health, even though it might result in really negative consequences for you, those things don't really matter to the person who sold it to you, because at the end of the day, they made the sale. The motive behind everything in an MLM is to make money. It's to sell the product, it's to sign that person up to become a distributor, and in a lot of cases, they're gonna say and do whatever they have to do at whatever cost to reach those goals. They're gonna make whatever claim they have to make to get you to buy into the idea that those products are going to improve your life in some way. So whenever you hear MLM products being pitched in these ways, I always encourage people to consider the source, remember the motive, where is that information coming from, why are they pitching it to you in that way, because most likely it has everything to do with making money and making the sale and nothing at all to do with actually improving your health. So thank you for sending in this story, and I'm hoping that there aren't any super long-term adverse effects of drinking oils for 2 years. This story says, "Hi Hannah, my name is Christina. You can use my name, I don't mind. I recently found your channel and I love seeing the anti-MLM content. I actually have 2 unknown encounters with an MLM, but one was just finding out a smoothie and drink shop I liked was a front for Herbalife, and I no longer go there because I refuse to support an MLM. Although the drinks were pretty good, I have to admit. But the other one is the one that I'd like to share in full details. I was hesitant on sharing this story only because I forgot exactly when the story takes place. I know I wasn't old enough to be going to an MLM product party, but I do know that this incident involving Mary Kay is the reason I didn't wear makeup for years, because my experience using their makeup convinced me that I was allergic to eyeshadow. Looking back now, I know it's because it was poor quality and I don't have problems with any other makeup brands I've come across since, but it was definitely something I wish I hadn't been blindsided with. So, some background. My brother was dating this girl from church, and I had gotten very close to her and her sisters because we spent so much time together. And my brother's girlfriend at the time would often invite me over when he would come over to hang out with my sister that was the same age as me. I don't remember exactly if my brother was home or away for college when this party took place, because again, I don't remember how old I was. I was somewhere between 13 and 16, I know that much. But he wasn't there that day because I was there to hang out with his girlfriend's sister. Well, at one point my brother's girlfriend came home with one of her friends, and they seemed super excited to have me and her sisters try out this makeup. We were going to have a Mary Kay makeup party. I had never heard of Mary Kay before, or even really an MLM. I probably should have been a bit suspicious that they had a single-use packet for all of us, but I thought maybe my brother's girlfriend had bought a large amount of sample packs and decided what color she wanted for herself before buying a larger amount, but didn't know what else to do with the rest of the samples. I'll admit, at the time I had no idea how makeup companies worked. I hadn't really bought anything other than some cover-up and mascara. Red flag number 1 was when the friend handed us out little cards and told us to write down 5 women we think would also want to have a Mary Kay party, and the first one to finish would win a prize, a product of their choosing. Red flag number 2 was this friend was trying to get underage girls to give contact information for their other underage friends. I did write down my mom and older sister, but I think I ended up erasing their names before handing back the card. Or the girl just didn't contact them after what happened with me during our party, because I don't think my mom or sister got approached about an amazing business opportunity, as far as I'm aware anyways. My brother's girlfriend and her friend then started walking us through how to use the makeup to do a smoky eye look. It started off okay, but as soon as I put the eyeshadow on, my eyes started burning. I was crying. I couldn't open my eyes for more than a few seconds. I was honestly a little worried that I was about to go blind because my vision was so blurry when I could open my eyes. But that was probably the tears. It hurt so much. I immediately had to remove it, and I felt bad afterwards because I thought I had ruined the party. Red flag number 3, the friend didn't even seem sorry or concerned from what I can remember. My brother's girlfriend was concerned, her mother was concerned, and her sisters were concerned. But the friend was quick to assure everyone that had never happened before, so it must be that I'm allergic to something and just didn't know it. I believed that because no one else had a problem with the makeup. I was so convinced that whenever I would go get my makeup done somewhere else reputable like Sephora or MAC, I would say that I didn't want eyeshadow because I was allergic to it. It wasn't until a few years later when I would try out eyeshadow again, when I was going into my senior year, because I already knew I would want my makeup done for prom. So I thought I would see if I could find a brand I wasn't allergic to, or maybe be able to build up my tolerance to wearing it. I got something from Target like Maybelline or CoverGirl, I can't really remember. And I didn't have a problem. I didn't have a problem with makeup for prom or my senior pictures either. And I've never had a problem since. I'm not allergic to eyeshadow, just Mary Kay's poor quality apparently. I eventually learned what Mary Kay and an MLM was, and I'm uncomfortable even now with the fact that I was pitched by my brother's then girlfriend and a stranger when I was barely a teenager and certainly nowhere close to being an adult. I don't know for sure if she really was friends with my brother's girlfriend or if she was just her recruiter, but the whole situation was weird and predatory looking back at it now. I've lost contact with the family over the years, but I do know that his ex was a Mary Kay consultant for a while. I don't think she still does it, at least I hope not. I hope no one else has had that bad of an experience with an MLM product, and I'm glad I wasn't seriously hurt, but it just goes to show that MLM products really aren't as great as they claim, and reps are willing to lie about it or gaslight someone to protect themselves or their sales. At least in my experience anyways, that's my story. Keep up the good work, and I hope you have a wonderful day and week. Thank you. I hope you have a wonderful day and week as well. I think it's definitely worth noting how many stories I receive or how many accounts I hear about of people having bad reactions to MLM products. And that's not to say that every MLM product is bad. It's not to say that everyone's going to have a terrible reaction to it, but it may speak to the fact that the products aren't as great of quality as the reps make them out to be, certainly not good enough quality to justify the price. And your story highlights kind of the victim blaming situation that goes on when you use an MLM product and you don't have a good reaction to it. And the rep, rather than doing the right thing and saying, oh yeah, our product might not be the best for you, you might be better off trying a different product from a different brand, they're gonna go the victim blaming route and they're gonna say, oh, it must be an issue with you. You must be allergic to it. You must be the reason that your eyes are burning with our eyeshadow. And this is a very stark contrast to how other beauty brands operate, whether that's drugstore brands or that's higher end, what we would call prestige brands. I worked part-time at an Ulta for several years, and their return policy is fantastic, and it's built under the assumption that not every product is going to work for every person, and that's okay. And you can bring a product back to Ulta within 60 days with proof of your purchase, no questions asked. The person at the register might ask you what the basis is for your return, whether or not it was a bad reaction or a defective product or the packaging was ruined or whatever the reason is, but that's just for bookkeeping purposes, that's just for reporting purposes. When I worked there, you had to check a box saying why the person returned it, but the difference is that the person at the register is not going to blame you for that bad reaction, they're not going to shame you for returning it, and they're not going to try and convince you to keep it or continue using it. I have shamelessly returned hundreds of dollars of products back to Ulta because my skin is very sensitive. There's a pretty good amount of products out there that don't interact well with my skin, but the difference is that I'm returning a non-MLM product to a store who doesn't care why I'm returning it. They're just going to accept the return and move on. Whereas if it was an MLM product bought through an MLM rep, that's a personal sale for them. That's something that they earned a personal commission on. They do take it personally for that reason, and they might give you a pretty hard time about it, and they might try and blame you for it. In some cases, they might not even accept a of return and you're just stuck with this product that you spent all this money on and you can't use. So again, when an MLM rep is telling you that the product just didn't work for you because it's your own fault and it's your own issue, consider the source, remember the motive. Why would they be telling you that? Because that's a personal sale that they're going to be missing out on, and they're going to take a hit if you try to return it. It's kind of sad to see that you thought that you were allergic to eyeshadow for a period of a couple of years there, but what does that maybe say about the quality of the Mary Kay product when years down the line you go and buy a very affordable drugstore product that doesn't give you a bad reaction? But I think you also did mention in here somewhere that these products were looking like they were intended for single use. So now I'm kind of starting to wonder if that particular eyeshadow that was used on you had been used on other people previously. In that case, we would have a contamination issue, which would be a whole other deal regarding the way that some Mary Kay reps potentially use their samples on people and the cleanliness or lack thereof that goes with that. I'm not sure. Regardless, I'm sorry that you had this bad reaction, but I'm happy that later down the road you realized that it wasn't all eyeshadows that gave you that bad reaction. It was just Mary Kay. This story says, "Please keep me anonymous. This is a story about awful, cruel sign-up practices. I know you've heard it all, but this is important for people to hear, I think. In the early 2010s, I was legitimately just moving out of a shelter for women who have drug and alcohol issues. I was renting a room and working part-time while also trying to make recovery meetings and groups. A woman at one of these groups was an It Works consultant, and as the only one around, she was doing quite well. New car, no other job, etc. Let's call her Shirley. I signed up fairly early in the boom I will describe, but honestly, after I sold back my wraps like a month later and made back my investment, I left. No one could tell me any of the science or how it worked, and I didn't like scamming people into fake weight loss. For some context here, the MLM company is called It Works, and one of their super best-selling products is called the wrap. It's basically like cellophane or plastic wrap that you cover yourself in, and you leave it on for a certain amount of time, whatever it is, like 45 minutes, an hour or something. And the idea is that when you take it off, you're gonna be skinny. That's the gist, okay? It's pitched as a very quick fix to weight loss. Super scammy, super sketchy. If you do see any weight loss or any inches coming off your waist or anything, that's likely water weight because you're covering yourself in this impermeable plastic wrap and you're perhaps sweating out some water. These wraps are not a long-term weight loss solution by any stretch of the imagination, but they are wildly popular, and that's kind of what It Works is known for, is their wraps. The real story was what I watched after. Shirley recruited at recovery functions and meetings. Not inside though, that would get her kicked out, but before and after. She talked nonstop about her success, especially to women new to these recovery groups. For reference, in the kind of recovery groups I was in, the new women were mostly fresh out of prison, unable to get most jobs due to felon status, women living in shelters, or women just out of rehab. These were women who had child support and restitution to pay and could potentially go back to jail if they didn't. They were often undereducated and looking anywhere for a chance. Well, Shirley got them signed up quick. A way to legally make money where you could be a felon, promises that they would be able to move out of the shelter, afford to have their kids back with them again. It was disgusting and gross. She quickly built up a huge downline of these women and ended up being like the top person in our region. And with every perk she received, she flaunted them to the fresh girls who couldn't even pay bus fare to get them to a meeting as a way to get them to sign up. Eventually, it got to be so much of a problem that when the main meeting she operated from had to move locations, they went ahead and changed the rules to banning MLM talk before and after. But the damage was already done. I have personally seen women trying to sell scam diet pills for cheap in order to get a fix, women unable to make child support payments and harming their chances for future custody, and women living out of their car with nothing but a box of those stupid wraps. Women who had been trying their hardest to live a new and healthy life were scammed into selling junk science weight loss products and ended up with absolutely nothing. But don't worry, Shirley bought a stupid McMansion and is living a happy suburban life. Now, when anyone brings up joining an MLM to me, I just say they don't work. I bring up that sure, some people do reasonably succeed, but in order to do so, they have to knowingly allow others to fail. And I would say that your story is the perfect example of that. There's no way in my mind that I would assume that Shirley was acting innocently here. I do believe there are some people who get roped into MLMs who don't really fully know how they work. They don't know the consequences of their actions. They are naive to how they are harming other people, but not in this case. Not considering when she's staking herself out before and after these recovery meetings for very vulnerable women in very vulnerable situations to pitch them a business opportunity so she can make some money off of that. You already did a great job of listing out all the different types of women who were at these meetings and all their different situations. And I think it's really clear for any of us watching this video right now to understand how women are made incredibly vulnerable based on those circumstances. And those are vulnerabilities that are clearly being preyed on by an It Works consultant looking for recruits to bulk up her downline. And what's the motivation for wanting recruits? To rank up, to make more money. That's the goal here. And I like the last couple sentences here where you say that, yeah, some people do succeed, but those people can't succeed without people under them failing. This is not about finding vulnerable people and offering them a path to a better life. This is about finding vulnerable people to benefit yourself, to push yourself farther up in the pyramid. You can't convince me that this woman didn't know exactly what she was doing, and that's really disgusting and disheartening. I will apologize on behalf of Shirley for recruiting you and preying on you in a very challenging time in your life, but I am happy to hear that it sounds like you signed up and then you quit really quickly after that and you were able to make back your investment and get the heck out of there. Not everyone is so lucky, and the damage can run a lot deeper than that, and I'm glad that that didn't happen to you in this case. But thank you again for writing in this story and for highlighting once again the predatory nature of these companies and the reps that are involved with them. This one says, "Hi Hannah, I was watching your latest horror story video and you talked about a scheme where people were at different stages of a meal, appetizer to dessert, as a classic pyramid scheme. And it reminded me of a time that a friend and I attempted to start a pyramid scheme. In my defense, I was 11. When I was a kid, there would sometimes be chain letters going around where you would receive a letter and be told to send it on to multiple other people, usually with threats of curses or years of bad luck. I remember these. My parents helped me open my own email account when I was 10 years old, and I remember getting all these kinds of chain emails in my inbox. I had no idea who they were coming from, but yeah, it was like, pass this email on to 10 people or else you're gonna have years of bad luck or whatever, and I used to be so threatened by them. And now that I think about it, what's the true purpose of that? What's the motivation for the person who started that kind of chain email? Just to get that email forwarded on to more and more people? It wasn't like they were asking for anything in return. Why do chain emails exist? I don't know, I'm clicking through a few different websites and no one has really a clear answer other than the fact that it's just to get the chain letter, the chain email out to as many people as possible, but for what reason? This website specifically says, while some use this media as a platform for scams, these messages usually don't serve much more than getting notoriety and getting shares. Weird. Okay, moving on. Somehow I got sent one of these letters, but instead of making threats, it offered a fun idea where you could get postcards from different people. You were supposed to send a postcard to the person whose name was at the top of the list of the names on the letter. Then you were supposed to make copies of the letter, moving all of the names up a place and putting yours at the bottom, and send the letter to multiple of your friends. They would do the same, and after a few rounds, I want to say 6 rounds, you would get sent postcards from loads of people around the world. See, that's something where you're getting something out of it. I can see why people would be enticed to do that versus the weird emails where it's like, send it to 10 friends, you're going to have 10 years of bad luck. I didn't particularly care about getting a load of random postcards from strangers, but when I talked about it with a friend, we realized we could do this with something that we did care about: chocolate. We could make our own version of this letter, only instead of telling people to send postcards, we would tell them to send chocolate bars. Of course, people would send the letters on because who wouldn't want to receive a huge pile of chocolate bars? We were going to put my friend's name at the top of the list and then mine beneath it, and in the letter, say that you should send it to 6 people. Then my friend would get 6 chocolate bars and I would get 36 chocolate bars since I came up with the idea. But my friend wasn't happy about only getting 6 compared to my 36, so we decided to put down another friend's name at the top of the list, even though she hadn't been a part of the original conversation. So she would get 6, the first friend would get 36, and then I would get 216 chocolate bars. How could it fail? Very easily, as it turned out. None of the friends I gave the letter to ever sent a single chocolate bar. One of them actually gave the letter back to me saying that that her mom had told her she should not participate in chain letters, so I should give her letter to someone else. Good for that mom. In the end, I got a grand total of 0 chocolate bars out of my scheme. It was a total failure, probably for the best. Thanks for reading my story. I like the timing of this story because it's really pertinent right now around the holiday season, although this video is going to come out in January, so I kind of missed it. But particularly around the holiday season, we see things like this popping up on places like social media, not necessarily through email or through actual physical letters, but you'll see on social media or Facebook all the time people doing this kind of scheme either with children's books. I've seen it done with a gift under $10. I've seen it done with stuffed animals, with kids' toys. It doesn't really matter what the product is. The scheme is kind of pitched the same way, that you pass this on to this many people, they pass it on to that many people, and then in the end, everyone's supposed to receive a certain number of gifts in return. You might see these called secret Santas or secret sister exchanges, and the idea is that you buy one gift or you contribute one item to the scheme, and then you're gonna get a certain amount back. I'll post this article from the Better Business Bureau explaining how these scams work if you want to check it out. But basically it says, in all of these versions, you give away your personal information, your shipping address, and you're left with buying and shipping gifts or money to unknown individuals in hopes that the favor is reciprocated by receiving the promised number of gifts in return. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen. Just like any other pyramid scheme, it relies on the recruitment of individuals to keep the scam afloat. Once people stop participating in the gift exchange, the gift supply stops as well and leaves hundreds of disappointed people without their promised gifts or cash. Exactly. So in theory, this could be really fun, but the moment that somebody scrolls past that Facebook post or they receive a chain letter and they don't pass it on, the scam ends with that person. It can't continue, and then everyone above you in the pyramid doesn't get the payout that they were promised. I personally think it's hilarious that you were age 11 and you had the wherewithal to kind of think of this scheme on your own and to put it into action, hoping to get chocolate bars out of it. I think that's a very intelligent thought process for an 11-year-old to be going through. I certainly didn't think that way when I would get these chain letters in my inbox. So good for you for kind of thinking that through and putting it into action. At the end of the day, it served to be a very valuable lesson on pyramid schemes at a very young age. And also let this story serve as a reminder and a warning that if you see these kinds of scams on social media, steer clear from them. It never works out as beautifully as you think it's going to. Sending one gift out there into the world and receiving a ton back sounds too good to be true. And when you work out the math and the recruitment that would have to be involved in that, you realize it really is too good to be true. And with that, my friends, it's all the stories I have for you for this MLM Horror Stories video. If there ever comes a time where you do want to send in your own story to me, the instructions for how to do that are down below. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate you, and I'll see you in my next one real soon.